Hey guys, welcome back to Open Spaces. We have been doing quite a bit since we've seen you last. We released all of 5 episodes, and now we're going to jump into the Q&A that we have been promising you. We have received lots of questions, and we'll get into that, but we want to start answering questions, get back into the flow of where we left off with you guys, and have a lot of great ideas coming. So welcome back to Open Spaces. We're glad you're on the journey with us.
Okay, so we're going to dive into some of these questions.
Well, before we do that, we have to talk about, we haven't seen our people for a while.
No, we got to get down to business.
No, oh my gosh. No, that's not how a podcast works. We got to talk to the people.
Hello, friends.
Hello, there we are.
Welcome back. We are so glad to be with you again.
That's your one personality.
I kind of
your one Enneagram and your type.
Oh, that's it. That's true.
Right. Let's go.
Yeah, we've had a lot happen. We've been trying to keep up, but also just been so encouraged with the response.
Yes. So just to recap, we released all 5 episodes.
Telling our story.
And so, and that was a massive step for us. That was a big, vulnerable place of, we've never done this before. We've wanted to do this for years. We thought this would be important to talk about, but we also didn't know how it would be received. We were prayerful. We felt like it was obedience for us to share. Right. And, and it was weird because we're telling all of our junk, but it has been unbelievable, the response. The main thing that I would want to say, and to the listeners, is thank you for sharing all your stories.
Yes, gosh.
I mean, hundreds of people have written in their stories, and this is what I want everyone to hear. This is the reason why we're doing it, because you're not alone.
Right.
We've had single people writing in saying, hey, this is my struggle. I've never told anybody. And
mostly young men.
Yeah,
or
mostly
older men.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
A lot of younger men that are like, hey, I struggle with this. I don't know how to walk in this. And believers that are fighting,
right.
Like, hey, I want to fight this. Don't know how. Feels impossible. I fully get it. And we're going to dive into all that. And then we have been also really grateful that couples, like so many couples, have written
a lot
their
more
stories.
Couples than I think we even expected.
Oh yeah,
and a lot of them on varying degrees of vulnerability with each other or with their families.
Yeah,
we've had a lot of people that have said, we talked about it before we got married, and we haven't talked about it since. Or I don't know how to tell. Like we this is our story, and we've had a lot of victory, and we're so grateful, but we haven't been able to tell our kids yet. And so it's kind of a lot of people on varying degrees of the spectrum of comfortability sharing with each other, even talking about it with each other.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that have been afraid to tell other people.
Yeah. And even we've had people write us saying like they're living a gay lifestyle, left the church, walked away from the church and Jesus because they were like, hey, we don't know how these two things can work together. And but we're listening. And so to you, I just say, I'm so glad you're tracking with us. I'm so glad you are listening and you're here. I think we have a lot to discuss within that. And again, it's been like something the Lord has really impressed on us from the beginning was to be the people that could stand in the gap between the person struggling and the person who doesn't understand in the church, and say both sides have to give grace in a really big way. If we're going to have a helpful, productive conversation around this. And so it's just been so awesome, like to see, and all of your questions that you sent in, people following us on Instagram, and that all of it has just been amazing. And we have felt very honored that you would share your stories with us.
Absolutely.
So you have to hear that.
So
Please
grateful.
know that. And though we can't respond, we haven't been able to respond to everybody, like we also are figuring out ways to communicate with you and to like do some group Zooms that we're talking about to be helpful. So all of that will come through our newsletter.
So you need to be signed up for the newsletter.
Well, how do they do that?
Well, you go to our website, openspacespodcast.com.
Yeah, not .net.
/connect if you really want to get down to the nitty gritty of it. And any page on our website, you can sign up for our newsletter.
Yeah.
Scroll down, sign up for the newsletter, because that's where you will be the first to hear what other resources when they release, when we are going to have things that you can join into. So please, please follow along there. That it'll just be helpful if you're needing resources, and a lot of you seem to want more resources,
Yeah.
and a lot of you seem to want more ways to connect. So that's how you do it. So please join in there.
Um, yes, we are going to dive into questions today. We have gotten a lot of questions.
Yes.
And so the way we have done this is we're taking kind of like the top 5 questions today because we'll talk through those.
Because a lot of the questions kind of fall into these buckets.
Yeah, they kind of fall into that. So we have been able to kind of narrow it down. These 5 will be helpful. Then we're going to create the next couple episodes you'll be hearing are some of those questions expounded on. For
One
example,
question per
yeah, like, for
episode.
example, a lot of people wanted to know if Jordan and I had shared this with our kids. And the answer is yes. But we want to be able to talk about how we did that and where we are in that process and how that goes. And we're still in it, but we want to, so that's like a whole episode. We want to talk about like, how would you share, for me, it's same sex attraction, but for you, it's something else. And so, or maybe it's the same, but like, how do you share that with your kids and how do you be vulnerable with your kids? And so we'll talk through stuff like that will become its own episode versus trying to get all that in one episode.
Right. And then just another like kind of caveat on this episode, these questions, we are going to answer these questions based on our experience. So, and most of them are personal to us. So that's a great place to start. But just as we want to remind you guys that we are continually on a journey, and we our perspectives and thoughts we're ever evolving, and what we're learning about how um and we're just one couple that has this story. So another couple who has a similar story might have a completely different perspective and different things that have worked for them. So I think just keep that in mind. We don't represent every couple that has walked this road. We are just trying to tell you what we've learned for ourselves.
Yeah, we're the experts in our story.
Right.
But before we dive in those questions, just saying like what were some of the other questions, the big questions? Like a lot of people wanted to know, outside of these top 5 questions, like people wanted to know like what's it like to do ministry and share that? How do you talk to your kids about it? What did your parents think when you talked to your parents? And did you talk to your parents about it? And we're gonna get into that. Talking to Jordan's parents about it.
The church, how the church has responded.
Yeah, like the big church, capital C church, like how the LGBTQ questions in the church are happening and are not happening.
Right.
And a lot of people had questions on those, and we have a lot of thoughts on all this. So yeah, we'll share our thoughts, and that's all we have. Before we keep going, and if you're not watching, then you won't understand this, but would you straighten your cable that is dangling? It's
I got a dangling cable, guys.
If you're watching on YouTube, it's just distracting me staring at it.
So sorry.
It's really not a big deal, but
this
it's
is
just
your eye for detail.
I'm just driving me
Can't
crazy.
help it.
No. Okay, we're here. We're back. We're jumping into questions.
All right, let's dive in.
Okay, what was our first big question that was asked?
This is for you, Jeff. How do you navigate dating as a man struggling with same-sex attraction while also desiring to pursue a godly relationship with a woman?
Yes. Well, I think step 1 is when I'm walking with a guy now, and I had my own experience, but now as I'm walking with men and younger guys in this, I think step 1 is you have to make the commitment that what do you want? I think a lot of guys struggling with same-sex attraction don't really ever get asked that question. Where are you going in this? Like if you keep walking in the pattern that you are right now, where does it lead to? And is there a plan? And I've noticed that. And when you ask that, it really propels the person to be like, because for me with same-sex attraction, before we started dating, like I was just surviving. it was every day kind of had its own troubles of its own. So it was like, today I can get through to today, hopefully. And it was about me trying not to act out, a lot of mustering my own strength.
Mhm.
So I think starting at the place of like, what do you want? Before another person comes into your story and you start deciding with them what you want, you have to know what you want. And I think that's important because if you don't know what you want, then you're just bringing someone else into the mess of and confusion
Yeah.
that you are walking in. And it's not your fault, but you need to think, what do I want? Where is this heading?
Mhm.
If I don't fight this, where will I end up in this? Will I just be okay to be acting out in this? Or so when you choose to fight it, that's step one.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to fight it, and if that is your choice to fight this, then I think then that's the point when you go, okay, now I have and if you then it's the question, am I going to be single in this, or am I willing to bring someone else into this mess with me? And for me, I
And not just
didn't.
am I willing, but, like, do I want that?
Do
Do
I
I
want
want
it? Yeah,
companionship with a woman? Do I want to have a family? And
yeah, but I also think like I mean, I don't know that I would have said I wanted that.
yeah.
You know, like when we were.
Then what was it that made you realize you did?
What made me realize I wanted it with you was because I there was a point, and again, this is all important information on timing. I don't think you go on your first date or go out with a girl or like with her and just like start telling her all your stuff. But there was a point in our relationship that we had got to where we were hanging out. And in my mind, we were really close friends.
Yeah.
You and yes, we were in quotes dating, but like that just meant really close friends to me. So we were really close friends. We reached a point where I was like, I wanted to tell you something deeper about me. And I did. And then when you showed me that you were like full of grace in it and like wanted to, I saw your character in that. And then I was like, oh, I want this person in my life with this character. So again, it led me to want to go, what is possible with this person?
Yeah.
So because of that, you were the person that the Lord used to draw me into, okay, I do think that I want to be in a relationship with this person. And she happens to be a woman. And
Mhm.
so um, that was important. And so I think like when guys are processing that and figuring out like, do I want this? Well, it really you're going to need to find a quality girl who has character that when she hears this information presses you to the Lord and doesn't run and
Mhm.
also does not take this lightly with
Yeah.
you. Like she will fight the sin with you, and all of us want that in your. That's what your spouse is. Like that should be the
Yeah.
a relationship that is following the Lord like together. Like that's what you do. But I think it's important for that. I think that is what drew me to you. Is your character going, okay, I want to take this step. And I started like walking into that with a lot of every single day. Like, I don't know.
Mhm.
I didn't have like, I trusted along the way. There was a reason that we were together. And again, in our story, it was a 10-year journey.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, oh, we decided to do this and everything just worked.
Right.
It was very much back and forth, walking together through, a struggle and a fight that we both were willing to endure. And you were willing to do that with me.
So what I hear you saying is like maybe for the guy who's curious about this question, um, maybe take an inventory of the relationships, the female relationships that you have currently, and um, or as you develop relationships with women, those are the things that you're kind of like looking for. Is this
Yeah.
like the trustworthy? Is there a connection? Is this someone who's gonna not be afraid of my story, push me more towards the Lord? Those
Yeah.
kinds
And
of
I've walked
things.
with, and I have walked with guys that have met a girl who starts pushing them and they haven't even told, like they're really close friends
Hmm.
and maybe the guy hasn't said like, um, you know, this is my struggle.
Hmm.
Um, but they are, you know, in it together and the guy can just feel the girl pushing him towards the Lord. And there's something about that. And I say this to women listening, like on the other side of the guy or vice versa, if this is a girl who struggles
Hmm.
and the guy like is needing to hear this. But the person who is receiving that information at some point and again choosing to dive in and see that you also have to understand what is possible with the Lord. And you have
Yeah.
to And that was something you had to do.
Right.
You had to be like, well, I didn't really see this going this way, but you continued to choose me,
Yeah.
and that we were going to live that out together and walk in that and fight through it.
Totally.
So it's a very complex question answer to a question, because it's so specific to each person. But I do think it takes the willingness of this person struggling in this same sex attraction. Make your commitment that if you're going to choose to not live in it, be open to the opposite sex that you're close to, open to telling them, and be curious what it could look like. Remember, relationships are not based all on sex. That is a part of a relationship, but that's a very small part in the grand scheme of your relationship. So that can be worked on.
Yeah.
And then choose to fight together and push each other towards holiness, and then lay all possibilities on the table and see what the Lord has.
That's good.
Yeah.
Also, what I hear you saying is that it was me or no one. Right? Would you agree?
Yes.
Good.
Who else?
That's so
Who else would
romantic.
have? And you're so lucky now.
I am.
All of the mic cable and all of my little details that
I
you
love
love
it.
so much. I truly do think that, though. Like, I would not be married if it wasn't for you. Like, that's what I always say. So just believe out there that somebody is, you're Jourdan.
She's waiting. She doesn't know it yet.
She or he is waiting. And it could be, but they both could be Jourdan, because it's,
It's true.
you got both names, boy and a girl name. Okay, sorry. Next question, Jourdan. This one is for you. How did you trust that I truly loved and wanted you, knowing that this whole battle and struggle was very real, and knowing all of that? A lot of people wanted to know that about how you were feeling in that, and how you do feel in it.
Totally. The first thing that came to mind
was that he's so awesome. How could I not?
Is just that he's so awesome. The first thing that came to mind was time. I think, we had those 10 years before we got married, and we've had almost 15 now since we've been married. But because we had so much time and history and journey together through different seasons, and through kind of even for me, like becoming an adult and learning what life through my 20s, that was a lot of it. Just the longevity of being able to see you in different seasons, and and the consistency of how our connection, how I was made to feel with you. And so that was probably the biggest one, honestly. But really, I can't emphasize this enough. Throughout the entire time, from the very beginning, I was praying about this relationship. I was praying and asking the Lord for guidance. I was praying and asking the Lord for his affirmation and for his wisdom, and to really guide us. And when it got down to the really tough days, and when we were really digging into your struggle and what that would look like for us, and how do I respond, and what is my role, and all those kinds of things. I mean, so much prayer in that. And so I have to say the Holy Spirit was ultimately affirmed this marriage and this relationship. So that gave me the most confidence. It was believing that God was in it, and that he was pleased with it. And so, the way that I felt that was through our connection, through the way that I didn't feel the way I felt with you with anyone else, or in anything else in my life. So there were those kind of intangible qualities as well. And I saw like measurable changes in you through the course of our time, especially in that last year, when we, after we had broken up for the 2.5 years, and I thought we were done for good, when you came back to me to make your plea
Please take me,
that you could re-enter my life. I saw a a new, refreshed person that had been changed on so many levels, and so I also could see your resolve, and I think that that's a big piece too, is I could see your resolve for wanting to, um, do whatever you needed to do, whatever it took to be the man that I needed, that to be the man that would make me feel pursued and to feel secure. So that those things were all in place and have been in place. And so now in our marriage, I've watched you and experienced and I think we've both experienced this willingness to move towards each other, to learn how to serve each other. And so there's been a lot of continued growth. And even though it gets stagnant sometimes, but like ultimately I know that you want to that you have committed yourself to me because I see it in all facets of your life.
Yeah.
And all facets of our relationship and in our family.
But for the people, like, go back. So at the end, like, you knew at the end that I was committed, but like, even during, I wonder if someone who is dating,
Mhm.
and they're, just going back to ours, like when, we've talked about me confessing cheating, we've, talking to you about, and you're walking in this dating relationship, aware that I'm attracted to men, but still having a confidence and a belief that we are to be together. Like, do you have anything else that would be practical, or in those moments that you, was it literally just kind of like, I just trusted the Lord that this is right? But like, you had to have human moments of like, in those days of, I don't know, it's been so long, but like, anything else that you would say to the person that's like, I'm in this relationship with this person who is struggling, and I feel insecure because I just don't know if they're like wanting to walk this with me,
Mhm.
but we're really good friends, and maybe he's not sexually attracted to me, but like, how do we move forward, or should we take this further?
Yeah.
Um, what are the things that we did that helped lead towards a true relationship that ended up in marriage?
Yeah.
Like, was there
Well,
anything that,
I think so maybe it's helpful to know like there were long seasons where I would feel very insecure, where I felt like I was having to pull you along and just keep you connected.
yeah,
And those were unhealthy seasons.
oh, did not like those, neither
Those
one of
were
us.
not if it was just that, then I would have needed to walk away.
Yeah,
But but we were able to, and that's what I was referring to, is like just the growth is like there would ultimately, that's why we broke up, was because we were circling around those kinds of seasons where I felt like, come on, we can do this. And I didn't feel the same resolve from you. And so that's why we would break up. And
yeah,
so then that in the end, but also even in those times, like I knew there was something in you that wanted me.
yeah,
And those are the things that you can't always define exactly, but
which
like
is true
our
because
connection, the fun we had, like all the things that
I
we've
was
talked
miserable
about.
when I wasn't with you. Like, I
So
wanted,
there were things that made it obvious. Like I know you want to be with me.
I was
I don't.
reminded of that the other night.
Oh, really? Tell us more.
Well, we haven't talked about it, but I had a dream that you were kissing another guy.
Oh, gross.
I, but I woke up and I was like so jealous,
Oh,
and
that's
I
great.
was so mad, and it was one of our friends. It was so weird.
Oh my.
Uh,
Will
but
not say who, and I don't even want you to tell me.
I woke up and I was like jealous all day. Like, I was like
Wow.
jealous and mad, and like, how dare that person?
Gosh, guys, you just witnessed a real time revelation here.
Sorry, I didn't tell you about that. Now it's the
Um,
right time.
well, that's great. That's great to know.
But my point is, like, I don't want you with anyone else. I want
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
I don't
That's
know if that even.
that's a good point. And but also my point is I felt that. And I
Yeah.
even when we were really struggling, I felt that and I believed it to some level. But then, it wouldn't be enough. And so we would break up, but then ultimately when what has made me helped me understand and be able to trust that you really want me is the fruit that I have seen.
Yeah.
It is the continued, even if it's, if it's a low point, if it's a struggling point, if we're disconnected, we always come back together, and there's always a desire for growth and to
Yeah.
move toward. Um, and you have made uh, so many practical steps in your own life of accountability that you've already talked about in previous episodes. Um, that I just know. I know you are committed to me. I know you're committed to our family.
Yeah, that's good.
Let's talk about communication in marriage. So like how we now communicate. And I hope that this is helpful because what we have learned from even the questions we've gotten is that a lot of couples that have our similar story where the guy is same-sex attracted, but they've gotten married, um, they have not talked much about it in marriage.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, like some of the practical things that we have done. And again, this is our story. This is even based on our personalities and our communication styles, but we have chosen to talk a lot about it. And we talked more, I think, in our earlier years because I was still learning a lot too.
Yeah.
But just giving examples of like what is helpful for you to share with me
Yeah.
in regards to temptation or whatever.
Well, I think where we are now is in marriage. I walk very closely with two other guys, and we meet weekly.
Hmm.
And you know that, so you know that I'm going to share with them details of like, hey, this is where my mind is, or this is what's happening in my temptations this week, or where I was. The things that I tell you when we talk about is the gym is a example. Like if I'm working out and and you know, there's a guy there or something, like I will mention to you like, hey, I was tempted today, but like just want you to know, or I'll
Hmm.
maybe say something along those lines. Not too much details because you've asked not for all the details.
Yeah.
And it's honestly, I understand that's not helpful.
Yeah.
To go into all the details. I do that with the other two guys or
Hmm.
whatever. But I think also the thing that helps me be free and helps me uh, talk about it with you is that your willingness to just accept that this is part of my life.
Hmm.
You're not afraid of it.
Hmm.
I'm not afraid of it. I think in the secrecy and in the fear of it, that's where shame and deception and the enemy loves to just twist things.
Hmm.
So for us, we've taken the route of we know that this is a big part of our story,
Yeah.
but it's not defining us.
Right.
And we have God has done this miraculous thing specifically around this for us, and so that's a pretty cool thing that we get to carry. And I don't want to, and if we were not acknowledging that, it almost creates and compartmentalizes that area of my
Yeah.
life. And that was a big deal for us for a long time, working on
Hmm.
compartmentalizing like my life being whole. Like working out the same sex thing over here, having my family over here, like that just didn't work for us. We
Hmm.
we kind of had to, through counseling, figure out how to integrate all of life.
Yeah.
And so, when it comes to talking about it, it's just you are so great at like just allowing me to be who I am. I'm not afraid to be the guy in the home that is the designer. I'm not afraid to, again, this is specific to us, but we like to, we joke around about things
Yeah.
together, with it. And we have used humor to lighten the heaviness of it,
Right.
not to negate or to minimize the
Right.
struggle. But for us, it's kind of more using humor. That's
Yeah.
just who we are. And so that helps us. Um,
I think the way we normalize it too is that it's not just about you. So like you sharing about your temptations and things like that, I have also learned how to get better because I am not naturally or instinctually as vulnerable as you are. And so I have learned to grow in my vulnerability with you and letting you into my struggles. And so I have just learning how to be more real when can feel myself kind of starting to spiral. And I can talk to you about like what triggered me into this spiral or what relationship I'm insecure about or what I'm starting to believe about myself like so that's kind of how we even normalize where you talk about your stuff and your temptations and where you're feeling and even not regarding same-sex attraction like other things
mhm.
that are making you insecure or whatever like we just we have normalized being able to talk about the things that we're thinking about that we're um struggling with. So it's not, so again, it's not just a spotlight on you in our marriage. Like, you are the one that has the struggle, but we have,
normalizing that we both struggle
yes,
with something.
this has been a journey for us and a process of keeping those conversations open.
And one other thing is, I think that as we continue, it's not education at this point. You understand what it's like for me to walk with same-sex attraction, but I don't hide things from you. So let's say, for example, we go out to a restaurant, we're eating, and there's a guy there, and in the way this works in same-sex attraction is like there's like this underground hidden rule, and we may make eye contact. Like, I look at him, he looks at me. It's like, it's weird, but we kind of instantly know. And the way that I try to fight the struggle is, instead of just like living in my head in that, we talk about it. I'll be like, that guy just, that guy was making eyes. It just kind of, and I just say it, I say it to you, and you're like, or sometimes you even ask me, you're like, is that guy like, because you've learned to eyes open, looking around and know more about what it's like in this. So, but I think that that's been healthy for us. And I would say that's healthy, like,
and to be clear, you're not always talking about that equals a temptation for you, but calling it out can
it actually takes away the temptation.
Yeah. Another thing we've done on date nights, and this could be for anybody with anything, and if you need to take steps towards vulnerability, if that's not a normal practice in your marriage, we've started incorporating, when we're on dates, like, you will ask, or I will ask, like, how would you rate our marriage right now? And just sort of start there.
Yeah, like a number,
like,
1 to 10.
Yeah, 1 to 10. And
how are we doing?
that
we need
will,
to be better at.
yeah, that'll lead to some good conversations. Like, and why do you rate it that way? Like, what's missing, and that kind of stuff. And that's helped us to just keep conversation open.
Yes. And I'm always like, why are you always saying it's a 10?
Oh, because it is just always a 10. Jeff,
Yes.
we're gonna make this a little more serious.
Okay.
Jeff, do you feel like you are being true to yourself by choosing to be married to a woman and denying same-sex desires?
Yeah, we knew this question would come. We knew that this would be something that is hard for a lot of people to understand, and would be something that people would kind of raise their voice on. You're not being true to yourself. You're denying yourself. And yes, that question has come a lot. Let me start with saying and this is my experience, so I speak from my experience. In my experience, the life that I'm living now is more true to myself than I think I ever could have been if I wouldn't have taken these steps of obedience. So what I mean by that is I've never felt more like myself. I have learned myself more in marriage. I have learned to struggle well in marriage. I have learned roles that I didn't even know that would be mine to have in life, such as husband, father, protector. Looking back, when I was, acting out in this and living a double life, like, I couldn't have seen that there would have been a place in my life where I would have been a father who would do anything for my kids, or a husband that would fight for my wife and do anything for you. Like, that was too playful in it all. I didn't take it seriously enough. And it wasn't until I actually stepped in to a radical obedience, is what I always say, of marriage, that it was like, hey, I will die to myself. And I think that, Matthew 16 says, whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. I think that's the truth of what has happened for me.
Amazing.
I lost my life the way that I knew it, but what I have found has been so much better and so much greater than what I ever could have imagined. And I also think of, I've always loved the verse, Psalm 37:4, delight yourself in the Lord. He will give you the desires of your soul, of your heart. I've seen it. Now I'm standing on the other side of it. Like, I chose the Lord. Before I chose you, I chose him.
Yes, that's key.
And you, again, if you're struggling, if you're trying to chase the idea of marriage or a spouse, or is this possible for me? If you haven't made the decisions to give everything for the Lord, then stop chasing the person, because it just won't be fulfilling.
Yeah.
But if you follow the Lord, you lay down your life and you surrender to everything of him, and you truly have those encounters and those moments with him where you want nothing but him. That's step one. And then when you delight in him, that is why I believe that he gave me you and why you came into my life. And I didn't know that for 10 years. I didn't understand it. And even stepping into marriage, we've said like
Mhm.
our engagement was funny. Like I was like, so are we going to break up? Or are we going to get married?
Mhm.
And then it still was kind of like not romantic. And it was
Mhm.
like, well, we're going to take this step. And we did it. And then we get married. And, um, and then we had to figure out sex. And people have asked, like, do y'all only have sex for kids? No, I would say that we have a great sex life.
Yeah.
We, just like every other couple, we have to figure out frequency and all this stuff. So,
Truly.
like, that we're not in any ways perfect. And those, but I have watched the Lord do things in my life now and become this person that I never knew was possible.
Mm.
The fact that now we're not on the other side of anything. We're still
Right.
all in it together. But the fact that like I am on the other side of saying yes and committing to marriage and having 3 kids
Mhm.
and now learning to walk with those kids and help them in all of these things that we're talking about, how they can surrender their life to the
Yeah.
Lord. And it's just stuff that I never knew that I would get. It's way, way better than what I could have ever imagined. So where someone might look at me and say, "Well, you're denying yourself and your true desires," I would say, "Yes, I am denying myself because there's something better on the
Mm.
other side of self-denial, and it's Jesus and it's his plans that do not get revealed until you surrender
That's
and lay
amazing.
your life down for him." And so that's the gift that I've received in all of this. And
Mm.
even the fact that we're talking about this and we're so freely speaking about it,
Yes.
and shame doesn't rule our life
Right.
and shame has no place in our home. And we fight sin and we struggle, but we fight. And what else could be greater? I am
Say that,
the best
Jeff.
version of myself that, so, it's an upside down kingdom.
Yeah.
You lay your life down and you find it.
It's amazing. Wow. I feel like we need to have a little Selah moment. That was amazing. I mean, and that I know that that's true. And because you have said that and we've gotten a chance to hear your heart, I want to just briefly respond to the people who have asked of me, why wouldn't you just want him to be himself? Why wouldn't you just want him? Wouldn't real love be letting him be himself and, um, you know, that kind of thing? And I would say I did want you to be able to be your truest self, and I wanted you to be able to find um exactly who that was and is, and I believe that you have. Um I and I think if people could have my vantage point without my vantage point, these are just words, like this is just like,
Yeah.
it's easy for you to say. But if you had my vantage point and you got to sit in my shoes and see the who this man is and the way that he loves his family, the way that he loves me, um, the way that you really do lay down your life for us, um, then I think that I just want to honestly just like testify to what you're saying because I've seen that and I see it every day that this is who you are and this is the way that you light up with us, the way that I'm confident that you would rather just travel with me than anybody else,
Yep.
and that you want to just be together as a family more than anything else. Like I think that if people could really see that then they would probably be amazed that this is really your fullest life.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I just wanna say yes and amen.
well, you've been amazing. You've never once looked at me and said, just stop doing that stuff. Like you've always given the grace and walked with me through it and let me find myself on the journey. Maybe that's why I got here.
Oh, we're definitely on a journey.
Okay, question 4. How do you navigate vulnerability in ministry, especially when your story could risk your job or your reputation? It's been a big one. A lot of
Mhm.
people saying, I'm struggling with same-sex attraction, but I'm on a church staff. I haven't told anybody.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that. What if I lose my job? Um,
A couple of things that I think that this in question implies that you have to kind of think about is if you're not walking in sin, that's a big one. You know, if you're acting out in secret and in anything, in any sin, like struggle and consistently,
Right.
then that is significant, and there should be probably some disciplinary measures
Yeah.
taken in
For sure.
ministry job,
Oh
for
gosh.
to say the
Sure.
least. But if you are not walking in habitual sin, you're a person, you fall, you're tempted just like any one of us, but you're not, your lifestyle is not, your lifestyle aligns with honoring Jesus, then I think we would encourage you to not be fearful, because it's another layer of bringing your story into the light. Now, there's a lot to be that is there are a lot of variables as to your job, and
Yeah.
and who your leadership, what your church where your church stands, what the way what makes them feel comfortable, and those kinds of things. And but ultimately, we we want to believe that if we are walking in the light and sharing our struggles with people and seeking, you know, help and pastoral care, then that will be well received. And if it is not well received, then that does tell you a lot about your environment that you need to probably consider.
Yes.
Would you agree?
I fully agree. I go back James 5:16, confess your sins to one another, pray for each other so that you may be healed. Healing doesn't happen in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you have to, let's be very clear. Are you sinning and acting out in it? That's one thing on a church staff that I would say, again, to say what Jordan said, like that needs to be considered across the board. If like anyone, if
Yeah.
you're actively acting out in a sin, but we have to define what the sin is. Is a sin to be tempted in same-sex attraction? We would say no.
Mm-hmm.
We would say that if you're tempted in it, just like any temptation, but you're not giving into it or acting
Yes.
out in it, then you are not sinning. So maybe in your mind, the church has made it that to confess my temptations would say that I am sinning. And so that's a clarification point to make, I
Mm-hmm.
think, to make sure that you're having a healthy conversation with your leader or talking
Yeah.
about it openly in the church of saying, hey, I want you to know I haven't acted out on this, or I am acting out,
Mm-hmm.
and that may require disciplinary action that would be different than
Yeah.
which we would agree with as church leaders. Like there is a call to that. And but I think it's important in all of it to say if people around you that you are on a church staff don't know, like your supervisor, your manager, your director, your pastor, and you're on this church staff, then that would probably say that other people don't know. I mean, I just, it's not that you have to tell church leaders if if you're walking in community, really good community, and they know, but I'll give my example. Like for me, I felt conviction that um, it was personal conviction when we were still kind of like traveling, working through all this, that when we came into, if we were going to like partner with the church to help start a service for them for a couple months at a time, or be part of a bigger ministry
Like consistently. Yeah.
consistently, that I would meet with the director, the pastor, and directly and say, hey, this is my struggle. The reason I did that is because I had a past. I had acted out. I didn't want that pastor being put in a position where somebody comes to church that might have been in my past
Mm-hmm.
and sees me and comes to him and says, did you know this? And he says, no. That would be irresponsible of my leadership in position that I've been entrusted with
Your
under
stewardship.
this person's
Right.
direction, the pastor's direction or the
Mm-hmm.
director or whatever. So I just started having those conversations and telling people, and y'all, it was met every time with a lot of grace and love. And I know that that's not always the case, but I want to push people listening to like, don't live in the fear of I
Right.
can't say it because I'm nervous or scared. But say the thing, and let's just say you tell them, and this becomes an issue where it's like, well, maybe you shouldn't be in leadership, is what they say. Maybe that's not the place that you need to serve in then,
Yeah.
because can you truly be yourself in that environment?
Right.
And I would, if that's the case, if that in that scenario I just said, then
Mm-hmm.
I would say no. Like
Right.
you can't truly be yourself, be open and honest, and walk in the light in this environment.
Right.
So maybe it's time to look for another environment,
Yeah.
where you could, because you're doing nothing wrong by saying, I struggle.
Yeah.
Like
This this
if
is my
I'm
past. This is my
as a
temptation.
pastor,
Yeah.
I want people to tell me their struggles. Like that's, so we can walk together in it.
Yes.
But anyway, I think it is very nuanced and like
Mhm.
to each story, but live in the light.
Yes, live in the
Live in the
light.
light.
And give someone a chance
That's right.
to pastor you. Give someone a chance to extend grace. You have received so much. You have never been disqualified from a job or a ministry position because of your story.
Yeah.
And you've chosen to be honest, you've chosen to be forthright, and you have received so much grace. And every time it's been a blessing. It's been like it's been a blessing to us to be able to receive the grace that we've
Yeah.
received. So also just consider that giving people a chance to surprise you and to
Yeah.
show grace and to extend.
Yeah. Last question of these 5.
All right. What
Sorry, we're going a little long today, guys.
What advice do you have for someone who wants to love their same-sex attracted friend biblically, but disagrees with their lifestyle choices?
Yeah.
So here I think, again, this is, you're asking our advice. We can give you advice based on our experience. Um, consider, I would encourage us all to consider the nature of your friendship altogether. Um, do you talk about hard things? Do you mutually share your struggles? Do you, are y- as the friend of the same-sex attracted person, are you forthright about your own struggles? Are you talking about the things that are hard for you? Um, do you have in your mind, and and this is from my own experience, because I have had a history, and not just with same-sex attraction, but with, I've shared my upbringing, my personality, my desire to always be the good girl and to make the right choices and not, push the limits. So it was hard for me to understand why people would make choices that were not in
Yeah.
alignment
Just
with the
don't
Lord.
do it.
So,
Then there's people like me over here like, well, I wish I couldn't do it.
but what I'm trying to say is, I I would have this kind of agenda, like my goal would be that they would just change their behavior. And
Yeah.
like I would think, oh, if I can get you, or talk you into making a different choice or making a better choice, then like that's a win for me, or whatever I was thinking. So if there's any kind of thinking like that, that is that needs to be addressed in your own heart first.
Yeah.
That had to be addressed in my own heart first.
Yeah.
How I would approach a friendship. Do I have an agenda for you? Am I trying to get you to change your behaviors? Is that going to make me feel better about myself, or um, those kinds of things? So as long as that's there, you're not going to have good luck with loving your same-sex attracted friend.
Yeah.
So if you just are truly wanting to be a good friend to them, and kind of in this question, love, it says, um, you want to love them biblically, you disagree. Um, what is your goal? Is your goal to get them to not to
Change their behavior.
change their behavior, to not live a gay lifestyle, or is your goal to love them like Christ? And so that, I think that's a starting point.
Yeah, it's a hard balance because you need to speak truth and love in any relationship, but do you want them to change their behaviors or encounter a savior? What's your goal? What is your primary push in it? I want to speak to a second. The person, let's just say there's someone listening that is someone who struggles or someone who's acting out, and they're the other side of it. So the Christian friend who wants to address this person, and you are living a gay lifestyle, or you are struggling in it, and you just like, or maybe you're not struggling and you just don't want to talk about it, whatever. People have asked us, like, what would you say to them? Like, they're pressing me to say, like, well, do you agree with my life or not? And I want to say to that person, like, that's a really hard question to push on someone. And this is where grace on both sides comes in, because I would say, what is your ultimate goal? If you're asking your friend who is a Christian, following Jesus, and you sense that, what is your goal with them? If you are to say to them, so do you disagree with me and not in this lifestyle? Because what's the win if they say yes? If they say yes, can you
Does that end the
does
friendship?
that end the friendship on your side? Like, are
And
you going to
why?
be okay if you have a disagreement, and can you keep walking in that friendship? And so both parties with have to just extend a lot of grace,
Yeah.
that maybe you won't see eye to eye, and maybe you just won't find that place of like, well, one person says, I think it's a sin, I think it's wrong. The other person says, I don't believe that. Um, the question that I would say to the person who's like, hey, this is a sin and I want to call him out on it, you are not the Holy Spirit. The
Mm.
Holy Spirit is the one who will do the ultimate work on anyone. So push where you can if you need to, out of love and out of a true deep friendship that you are connected to that person, and it's not all about just trying to call out same-sex attraction
Right.
out of them.
And then
Does that make sense?
yeah,
Okay.
I think so. Um, and then also kind of on that same line, I think a lot of people are concerned that in being friends with someone who is choosing lifestyles that are different, that they don't agree with, um, there's a fear of like, well, if how far is too far before they just think that I align with them, or
Yeah.
that I affirm their choices. And so again, on a journey in relationship with people, helping understand there's so much room for being a loving friend, um, without aligning with choices.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you're going to be talking about the issue at hand, asking them questions, learning,
Being curious.
being curious is such a big and important thing. What was it like for you growing up? What's your relationship with your parents like? What's it like for you to be a Christian struggling with same-sex attraction? What are your biggest pain points? What has been offensive to you? Is there anything that I've said or done that has been offensive to you? And then you have a chance to rectify that or repent of that. And um,
Or maybe even go back to what I said at the beginning of this episode when I was talking about walking with someone. Maybe some ways, instead of just asking them, like, are you like, why, pushing, stop living a gay lifestyle,
mhm,
but instead ask them questions that would be helpful in life. Um, where are you, like, what's the future look like?
mhm.
Help them dream. Maybe they've
Yeah,
lost the
that's
dream for
great.
themselves. So help them dream about like what their future looks like. Help them see that they have a future, and
Yeah, that's good.
that there is something good.
And then just
And
and pushing them towards Jesus. It, in certain relationships, if it is a believer and it's a person that you believe wants to follow Jesus, then asking them questions about that. What do you think about Jesus? What do you think about the way that he did his ministry in his life? Have you read through the Gospels, and encouraging them towards the Scriptures, encouraging them to consider really who Jesus was, and allowing the Holy Spirit to do work in that as well. Um, I,
yes,
I was, and again, I will say pray for the person, but also pray for the conversations. Ask for the Holy Spirit's guidance in those conversations. If you're trying to get to the subject, and you're trying to ultimately say like, I don't think this is the best lifestyle for you, if that's what you ultimately want to be able to say, ask the Holy Spirit for the kind of opportunities that will present themselves where that person can receive it in love, and knowing that you already have shown that you care about them as a
yeah,
person.
yeah,
If you have invested in that relationship, and have shown them love in other practical ways, if you've shown up at their house, if you've brought meals, if you've just invited them over to your house, welcome them in your home, have them over, hang out with your kids, feed them meals, all these things. If you have an actual real relationship, then that person will already know that they're loved, and then can receive things that might be a little tougher to digest. But as you're praying for them, I just read this morning, um, in John 17, praying like Jesus prayed for us, which is incredibly moving. When Jesus was praying before he went to the cross, and he was praying for himself, and then he was praying for his disciples, and then he prayed for all believers. And he prayed that, for unity, he wanted us to be one. He wanted us to see his glory. And in 17 verse 20, my prayer is not for them alone. I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message. That's us. That's the believers of today, that all of them may be one. Father, just as you are in me and I am in you, may they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you've sent me. So, and then he prays that they would be protected, that we would be protected from the evil one. So pray for unity with this person. Pray that they would be protected from the enemy, and see what happens in that relationship as you're like actually seeking, excuse me, in my mic, seeking the Lord on their behalf.
Yeah, that's really great. Well, I think we just solved all the problems.
Gosh, guys,
We just
you're one-stop shop apparently.
5 questions. Lots more to come. Thank y'all for sticking with us today. I mean, we've gone kind of long, but I hope it was helpful. Yeah. And we'll give all kinds of more answers to a lot of the questions coming up in longer episodes. But
yes, so stay on this journey with us, and we will see you next time on Open Spaces. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We hope that this has been helpful. Again, we are one couple in walking through this journey. We're continuing to learn. So I hope you are, let's all just have grace for each other as we all are on the journey together. We want to make sure that you're tracking along with us on all the platforms, Instagram, open.spaces.podcast. And we mentioned earlier in the episode, but please sign up for our newsletter. We are going to have more resources coming your way, and you'll want to see that. So that is openspacespodcast.com. Scroll down any page, sign up for the newsletter, and we will see you next time on Open Spaces.